Coleman medal, the Norm Smith medal, Brownlow medal is Jimmy Bartel. Matthew Lloyd.
It's going to be a massive game, as we just touched on. So much at stake for these clubs. The Bombers could consolidate top four. The Pies could be out of the 8 at the end of this round if they lose this game of footy. But the Pies defensively, they're now ranked 12th with points against Jimmy, and I want to show where I think it's going wrong. So this is where Collingwood were at all last year, where they're so well set behind the ball and they always get an extra. So this is Billy Frampton where they did it well in that situation. So they're not doing it consistently well enough. Well, I think their pressure further afield isn't where it needs to be. So suddenly you see Darcy Moore, he wants to peel off. But they're in awful position. That skinny side player should have his finger in the back, pushing Ben King up at the footy. He's not. He's in no man's land, Jimmy, and it's been happening time and time again.
Yeah, the clear difference between your first edit and the second one is the spare player is really spare. And I don't want to make that sound too simplistic. And then everyone gets directly on their opponent, as you mentioned. So then that actually allows the spare player to see which player he needs to come off. And in that case there, he could have been sitting in the hole because everyone, as you said, has got the finger in the back. And when you look at these edits, at least you close this out and then the players don't get caught in no man's land. So when you have a spare back there, make them really spare, everyone put the arm across and then you get greater impact.
Yeah, so I think they've got to tighten up harder and Darcy Moore's got to try and stop filling for 3 or 4 players and just maybe take down Kyle Langford on Friday night in this game of footy, Jimmy.
Yeah, and what pulls apart those defensive structures or sides that want to be really proactive is what the Gold Coast Suns did. They had 68 inside forward 50s. Bodie Ewan, who almost looks like a mini dimmer here, just track him along this play. It's run and gun, it's overlapping, it's this forward handball. It's not handball, it's just a stationary opponent. It's actually taking metres and you create this 2v1 overlap and distance, and it forces all Collingwood's defensive structure. You see their players are running with their back to the ball. Some don't know whether to come up at it. And here's the opportunity for Essendon. We know they've got the players in their back half. Martin, their midfielders join in as well. And this is what you can create. They're doing it against a really good side here in Carlton. And look at these looks for the footy. They'll get them against Collingwood if they're willing to run and draw the next one.
About 6 weeks ago, I said Ben McKay was the recruit of the year. Last 6 weeks, he's dropped right off and he's stopped taking his marks. So he's gone from 11 disposals to 7 marks, 4.7 to 2 intercept marks. He's down to 1 a game and he's been beaten 57% of the time now. So this was him at his best, Jimmy. He was a confident player, whereas marking everything. Like, as I said, it was like finally he's got to a club that wins games of footy, but he's just gone back to being a placid backman who's not being aggressive. Ridley's been caught out a little bit in the last month too, so it's time. I don't think there's any superstar he's going to be playing on this weekend that he asserts himself again.
Yeah, they're a much better side when he's taking the opposition's best opponent and then working off them. But Nick Dacos, we talk about him all the time, but probably what we need to highlight is his running, and his running power both with attack and defence. Game's in the balance here. Look at this, one effort. This is exhausting work. Don't underestimate how tiring this is. This is what they try and spend all summer doing, and repeat efforts, working in the little phone box, but still having that energy and power to get to the next contest. He's the one who's doing it more often than most, and that's why they're able to come back in some of these thrilling games, because his energy and work rate. Look at this one. We've all seen the amazing goal, but he actually starts it here, misses the kick, gets it back, actually hits Bobby Hill here on the chest, who drops the ball. But guess who bobs up? And we've been seeing this edit all week. A magnificent goal. That's a huge amount of work rate. Look at that, halfway through the last quarter, and he's doing that both sides of the footy.
Caldwell go to him?
I think Caldwell should take him at stoppages and then work off him.
Who are you tipping?
Bombers.
Yeah, Bombers for me as well, Ed. Damo?
Collingwood for me.
Are we allowed back at the desk yet?
Come over, boys.
The Coleman medal, the Norm Smith medal, Brownlow medal is Jimmy Bartel. Matthew Lloyd.
Huge games everywhere in round 17 and none bigger than Port Adelaide v the Western Bulldogs at the Adelaide Oval, Jim. And both Ken and Bevo need this win to consolidate in the top 8. And Liam Jones, how good has he been for the Western Bulldogs? Last week he beat Nick Larkey hands down, and they're just trying to find someone to support him, but he just rarely gets beaten, does he?
Yeah, he launches at the footy, and the thing with it, I love when he takes a chest mark, he puts all the body into it. It's absolutely great fun to watch, but he just attacks from the last line. They found the big rock lobster, Rory Lobb, to come back there and try and help out on a key position player, and if they can get that to work with O'Donnell, it'll give us some good options to cover a lot of the Port Adelaide tools. Lloydie, who I want one of them to stand up and take the deepest forward role. They are number 1 in the competition at taking shots from 40 to 50 metres out, but they're 18th for conversion. So it's telling you, if you keep taking shots from 50, they're very hard to convert. So they've got a lot of tall options. They only kicked 2 goals fired between them against the Saints, but none of them really want to own the deepest one. They all want to keep coming up and hitting up on 50. Which one of the 3 really want to be the number one banana on the forward line.
And I want to look at the matchup. So down the other end, Adeladie, like they're just going to go big. Obviously, Darcy, Norton, Jamara Ugle-Hagan. So I've got the two matchups, Adeladie for Darcy, Zerk Thatcher for Norton. I've got a question mark on Ugle-Hagan, but I'm also questioning Jamara Ugle-Hagan. Does he want to break through the ceiling of what he does week in and week out? So they're his disposal. So in the last 8 or 9 weeks, hasn't had more than 13 touches, and he kicks his 2s and 1s every week. Is he willing to work harder? Has he done a big enough pre-season? Does he work hard enough during the week? So that's my question on him, that does he want to be more than just a good, solid AFL player, Jim?
Well, the ability's there. We've seen it in glimpses, and now we want to see these, as you said, these 2s and 1s. Can we convert a few of them into 4s and 5s and really go to the elite level? Well, a man who's absolutely at the top of the tree, Bontempelli, what a star. We just love watching him play. And AFL ratings, I know some people look into them and some people don't like them, but this season, his rating is higher than any of the recent Brownlow medalists who we've said have had unbelievable years. We're talking Ablett, Martin, Dangerfield. He's just playing through the roof. He can go forward if someone's sitting on him, kicking goals. He comes through the middle of the ground just with such smoothness and easiness. And the obvious matchup is Willem Drew. Lloydie, he's taken some of the big names in the game, does a really good job. He's physical. He gets in behind his direct opponent, so forces him under. So when he has a loss, Willem Drew, in the contest, he has what's a good loss. But this is what I like too. He's actually a really good ball user, kicking inside forward 50. Again, on top of 50, we want him a bit deeper. But he can actually ask some questions of the opposition's best mid and try and hurt them the other way.
Last weekend, St Kilda players said to me that Jason Horne-Francis is the toughest midfielder they've played on all year. So I've seen his explosiveness, I've seen his highlights, but I've never heard people say his work rate blew us up. But that's what St Kilda players were saying about him last week.
Yeah, he's number 5 in the comp for score involvement. So that just shows you when he gets the footy, something good's really going to happen. And we normally see the highlight of him bursting out through the front of a stoppage. So you've got to be on alert if you're doing that to Dogs. But he can now run an overlap. We saw a couple of these highlights. He wasn't there originally, but comes down through the middle of the ground and he joins in everywhere.
Port or the Dogs?
I'm a believer of the Dogs. I think they're a good side, still coming up the ladder.
I'm going to go the Dogs as well in this one. 4:35 also on Saturday afternoon is Hawthorn v Geelong. It's 13th v finalist, but if Hawthorn win, they actually go with the same points as Geelong in this game of footy.
Really important down at GMHBA Stadium. We always talk about the width of the ground, so it's important to win territory and stoppage, and this has been a massive improvement during the Hawks surge. And look at the quality of players. Will Day, we all love as a player. But Big Lloyd Meek, his correct name is Big, he actually absolutely dominates in the stoppage. He can hold out his direct opponent, and they're scoring from stoppage, and they're starting now to get the rotations and the looks they want through the midfield. So early in the year, they weren't sure who mixed and match as far as inside, mids and the outside running carriers, but now they're getting a really good look at different options.
And Patrick Dangerfield, Damo, put it on the agenda during the week, the difference that he is making to this team. So they were lost without him through their midfield. They actually look pedestrian. Mark Blixarves and Atkins and Bowes and Bruin and these types of players. But since he's come back, or last week in particular, he puts a different dimension on them.
He does. He explodes away from the stoppage, puts the opposition under a heap of pressure. But another good move the Cats did was Tom Stewart, of course, into the midfield. He had 24 centre bounces, but he can only do that if Collar Jasny and Henry actually take care of their jobs. Henry playing almost the role there that Tom Stewart plays, where he comes off and impacts the contest. But they've got to win their one-on-ones. If they can take care of behind the footy, it means you can have Tom Stewart further up the ground. So it's really important they win their matchup, or at least nullify it and provide something behind the footy.
And for the Hawks, Scrimshaw, one of the biggest improvers of the year, hasn't he?
Yeah, since he copped that absolute bake from Sam Mitchell, he is playing super footy, one-on-one defensive footy. We know he can use the footy. And Frosty, a bit of frost ball that we always love, but he's very hard to beat at the moment. He's in good form. His body is fit. He's quick off the mark. And they're being really good pillars in defence. And look at this. This is what I love from Scrimshaw. Intercept and get the ball moving.
I reckon Jeremy Cameron's due. So I think he's been okay, but he hasn't been great. So since he destroyed Carlton and he kicked 5 goals when they won that big game, these have been his numbers. So his marks have dropped off a bit and his goals. So I think he's due for a big 5 or 6er against the Hawks in this game. I think with no Tommy Hawkins, I just wonder if he can turn on another big one.
Yeah, and his partner up forward since big Tim Tam Tom has gone out is beware of the Rowan. He's got speed and he can actually get out the back. And I think he helps Jeremy Cameron because he can get him behind if Cameron goes up, but he can also provide a really good hit up. Some of these marks in the wet were unbelievable. But this is what I love. Look at the speed, turn and go. If you're Cameron heading back to goal or one of the smalls, look at that, the whole inside forward 50. Stengel gets on the end of this one. dangerous option when Rowan's fit.
And I think the smalls, Jim, are getting as more important than the talls. So I think you need 3. So we saw Collingwood win a flag last year with 3. Your Giants were great last year with 3. And Connor McDonald's been sensational, Moore, Ginnivan, and then you've got Close, Myers and Stengel. So that's where the battle's going to be won. But the best of them is Dylan Moore. I think he should be the All-Australian half forward at the moment.
Yeah, work rate is extraordinary. He's down there just near your hip, but he does almost repeat 150s up and down the middle of the ground. We mentioned Horn Francis as far as score involvements. Number 1 score involvement player for the Hawks. 30% of their scores come through this man, and he gets up to half-back. And then we see him get inside.
Can they continue this role, the Hawks?
I think if they're going to ever beat the Cats down there, it's this week.
Yeah, Hawks for me as well.